Welcome to Personal, the podcast where we get to meet the real person behind the professional. I'm your host, Charlotte Nichols, and I'm really excited to be talking to Sarah Pike today. Sarah is a breakup and divorce coach.
Unfortunately, some people have great marriages, some people don't. I didn't. I always say that I had a wedding, not a marriage, because I had a brilliant wedding and the run up to it was gorgeous and I actually loved it. But the moment that I was married, it all just changed and it was just downhill from there.
Oh, and did you ever question him, like, why? Why even marry me if this is how you're going to be?
Yeah, of course, of course. He didn't want to change his lifestyle either. We both worked he met me when I was a model in the fashion industry, and then I went into the music industry, so it was all very cool.
Mm-hmm.
He worked in the music industry, and it was all this like guest list this, rooftop party that, VIP this, backstage that. And it was a really cool lifestyle. But there came a point where I didn't want that lifestyle anymore and I wanted to change. And I was going into studying meteorology and doing physics and maths and all that type of stuff. I love science, I love maths, I'm a musician, so I love anything to do with, frequencies. I can understand how you can relate those things to things that we do every day.
Yes, I love that. Mm-hmm.
It's brilliant. And I then became too geeky for him. And it was things like he would say, there was a gig, I can't remember, it was Tiny Temper or somewhere. Anyway, it was in Shoreditch. It was one of these cool, private things. I do cool like that because I just don't think that it's cool. But like everybody else, like he would think everything's so trendy and cool. And I was supposed to be going with him as the plus one. And on that evening, he said, "Oh, no, you're not coming." And I was like, "What do you mean?" This is before George. And I should have noticed at this time.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first. So now I think about it, this is the time that I should have noticed that he had this side to him, because this is what then came out in the marriage all the time. So I wasn't allowed to go, even though I was ready and I was ready to go, and he went without me. I should have known then that was the real him, because then once we'd got married, his lifestyle didn't change, and he didn't want to change it either. He still wanted to go out with his friends. I mean, we were in our 30s by this point, early 30s, so we are still relatively young. People do still want to go out, but when you have a baby, there's a responsibility that comes with that, and for some reason some people just don't see it. And I don't understand why you would go through that process with someone, marry them, have children with them, but then still want to be 21. Doesn't make sense, but so many people do.
I know. I think they can have it all, really. Yeah. And, hindsight is a beautiful thing. You don't see so many things in the moment because you are so in love. You're wanting the best. You want everything to be happy and work out.
Yeah, those rose-tinted glasses can be very thick sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
So what gave you the courage in the end to leave him and get divorced?
There was two things. One, he went away on holiday with his friends to Corsica for his big music festival, of course. And within that week that he was away, I just realised that I was on my own completely. We lived in London. My family were living in Mozambique at the time, and I didn't have any immediate support there unless I was going to get a nanny. And I didn't want to do that at the time. So I just took care of George, and I realised how much easier it was on my own. I just realised how much easier it was without having to justify what milk I'd used that day or what colour pants he had on, or, was I going to put that on him or not? And just every single minute thing that was picked on and picked at and picked apart, which was what my life became, completely unravelling everything. And I had to give reason for everything. And it was so exhausting. And then when he was away, I realised how exhausted I was because of the way that we were, not because of how he was, but the relationship that we found ourselves in, that I then found myself in. And I had to take responsibility for that, because I stay in that relationship. And if you stay in a relationship that is not healthy for you, you can't blame anybody else but yourself. You've got to take responsibility for that. As hard as that is, one of the hardest things to do is look in the mirror and actually accept who you are and what you're doing and how it can be detrimental to your situation. There's so many people that go outwards and blame this and that and this and that and this. But if you stop going like that and go like this and look at yourself, you can make big changes to your life that could be a lot more positive in the future. So obviously there was that initially was the big thing. And then also I just realised when he came back, and I realised how desperately unhappy I was as an individual, that I couldn't have stayed with him because it would have affected George. And there was no way that I was going to let George be affected by something that I knew I could control. So the best thing for me at that time, when George was still young, was to separate. But it was my decision to separate, even though, in my opinion, he might say something different, but in my opinion, he was the one that was causing the dramas. He was the one that was causing the pain and the hurt. But it was me that made the decision, which was very, very tough to go through with the divorce process. And it took me a long time. It took me a very long time. I tried to stay together through December and January, and then by the February I was back at the solicitors, and that was it. Then I was out, and then I moved home and lived at home with my mum and dad and George, and didn't have anywhere to live, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and it was the most confusing time ever. And that was it. It's hard to take responsibility for imploding your own world as well. It's just very, very, very confusing at the time, I guess.
So what got you through that time? How did you work your way out of it?
At the time, there was lots of walking, and I just remember lots and lots of walking. So George was really small, and he'd be in the pram. So obviously you'd take him out for a walk anyway. And he was a really stubborn baby. He just wouldn't sleep in his bed at all.
I had one of those.
It came in very handy. So I just walked around the housing estate in Ingleby Bowerk with my mum, and we just walked and walked and talked. And I think moving is really important. Having your breakup support team is really important. Your key people on your side that are always going to be on your side. You need 3 or 4 really good friends if you've got that. If not 2, 1, anything better than none. My mum always used to say, problem shared, a problem halved. Don't stop talking. Keep talking to your breakup support team. One person might get overwhelmed with it, which is why you need a few. So, share it. And even if you're saying the same thing 16 times, say it 16 times throughout that group. And people that will listen, if you've got those people in place, they will listen, because they'll know what you have to go through, and they'll appreciate that they're a part of that healing journey with you.
And I find you get different perspectives and different advice from people who've been through different situations as well.
You definitely do.
So,
yeah.
So I'm going through a divorce. It is horrendous. I'm not ready to share my story on the podcast yet, or maybe even ever. A friend said to me, share your stories when it becomes a scar rather than a scab. And at the minute, it's this big, really ugly, hideously painful scab. And I'm wondering for you, how long did it take for the scab to heal into a scar?
That's a really tricky question, because I think that your scab will always be a little bit scabby.
Okay.
It'll
Don't
always
tell me that.
just a little bit on the end. It'll always sting. It will always sting. Everyone's divorce always stings 10, 20 years down the line, because when you say I do, you don't realise that somewhere down the line it might be I don't, or that other person won't. So there's always going to be that. And I think a part of that process is coming to acceptance with it, and it's accepting that fact. It's horrible to hear that you're going through a divorce, and quite rightly, if you don't want to share, then don't. Just take your own time about that, and let yourself lead it. But things with, putting a timeline on it, you can't. And like every single person in this world is different. We're all unique. We've all got different levels of resilience. We've all got different levels of pain threshold. Some people will never get over something. Some people will struggle for a very, very long time. They do need extra support. They do need extra help. Other people, they're so committed to their own vision of where they want to be. It probably was never even really a bad scab. So it's different for everyone. Don't say, or don't tell me that, because you will be on your own healing journey as well, and you will find the right tools, and you'll find the right way to come through it, and you will come out the other end. And that's something that I am so passionate to tell people, that you will heal. At the time, when you're in the moment, you just can't see a way out. It's like this with a million boxes around you, all strapped in chains, and you feel like you're going to suffocate. You feel like you can't breathe, and everything's tight, and it's horrible, and your head hurts, you can't sleep, your eyes hurt, the sore, it feels like you've got constant jet lag. It's horrific, and it runs you into the ground. It tests you. Divorce is the second most traumatic life event, that's next to the death of a loved one. And it's almost, in my opinion, I think it's particularly worse, because a death of a loved one, you can accept a death, because even if it's an awful death, whatever type of loss that is, we all know that death comes at some point. But a divorce, you don't lose that person to death. You lose that in the death of your relationship. So that's the death, and you have to grieve it. And then that person's still alive. They might move on in a different direction, and that's a completely different direction from what you thought they were ever going to be, because you always thought that they were going to be with you. I always thought that I would be with my ex-husband, because that's, like I said, when you say I do, you don't think it's going to be I don't. So for healing, it's all timeline. Just blow it out the water. There isn't one.
I love a timeline, though. I love to be organised and have a strategic plan in place.
Absolutely. I think that the best thing you can do in that respect is, get assistance, support wherever you can, and help yourself in different ways. There's so many different ways that you can, but you have to help yourself. And as soon as you start to help yourself, you start healing, and you heal yourself, and over time that will change. But you can't sort of do it with a when then, like, when I get to this, then I'll feel okay. When I do this, then I'll feel okay. Or I'll feel better when I do, or when I get. It can't be that type of a goal, because otherwise you're always going to be striving to achieve something. It's got to be acceptance at the time, which is the hardest thing to do.
Yeah, and it's not a linear trajectory either. It's up and down, round and round. Like 1 minute you're high, next minute low. It's interesting.
It is. It is. It's a tough ride, and I'm not going to lie. There's no divorce that's a nice divorce. Even if you're the most amicable of couples, it's still not a nice process to go through.
No,
but there are ways to make it less damaging to your emotions.
And that's almost the career path that you're on now. Have your experiences shaped you into that?
Absolutely. When I've always been interested in coaching and sort of well-being, and I've had my own coaching. I've had therapy for donkey's years, since I was about 20 odd. And then when I finally found coaching, I was like, oh my God, why couldn't I have found this when I was in my 20s? All those years of therapy paid, it's gone down the drain. Coaching's brilliant because you see a goal and you work towards the goal. Obviously, therapy has its place for people that need it, and you need to work through certain traumas and events and whatever. But if I'd have known that the divorce coaching that I now do was available when I was going through a divorce, I would have snapped your hand off for it, because the tools and techniques that you use and the way that you can get yourself further and make the transformations quicker and make the changes, it won't ever stop the hurt. Everyone's got to be realistic with that. But there's tools and techniques to turn down the negative emotions, to help with the upset. Everybody's got a remote control to the brain. You just don't know how to use it. And it's things like that we work with to help people. And if I'd have known that it was available, then I would have easily gone for it. It's definitely helped me understand that that's what I'm definitely here to do.
Oh, it sounds so valuable. And the brain is a torturous device. Sometimes I've been listening, I'm quite spiritual anyway, so I try and like to stay present. Very tricky to do in this situation. But the brain, it likes to take you back on that loop and make you think about the hurt and the pain and how much you weren't loved and everything like that. And it's like, why? Why are you doing this to me?
Yeah, the hamster wheel. And that's it. It's a negative thought loop, and it's very hard sometimes if you don't have those tools and techniques to stop it. But the one thing to keep in mind is that your subconscious and your conscious, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's right and wrong, or not right and wrong, but what's real and what's not. Now, if you're ruminating on a negative thought, or, why me, or what's this happened for, or any of those, scenarios that we all do because it's natural, your brain won't know whether that thought that you're having is real or not. So you keep in that feeling, you stay in that feeling, you stay in that loop, and it actually makes that feeling deeper and harder to get out of. So it's the tools and techniques that we use to interfere with that, interrupt the pattern, put something else in place to distract from that, and try and take it apart, try and take those negative cogs out and dismantle it, and then rebuild up your blocks again with positive behaviours and thoughts and actions.
Okay, that's really interesting. If there's anyone listening that's going through a divorce as well, Could you give us an example of any of those tools? Is there any exercises that they could do quickly now that just helps them break that negative thought cycle?
Well, obviously, part of it at the beginning is awareness and self-awareness. Self-awareness is key. You can do full body scans and work out where you feel this pain. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from your stomach? Is it that you can't breathe very well? Are you getting full headaches? Sometimes, a lot of the time, it comes down to breathing techniques. Breathing techniques are amazing. Alternative nose breathing with different nostrils. I don't know if you know about
I have
that.
done that.
That's amazing, those types of techniques, just to cool things down. If you feel the anxiety coming up, cool that down, really just turn it down a peg or two. And also sort of think about the situation that you're in. Generally, a person's very negative or sad, hurt emotion will be up at 10, potentially push it up to 11. Now, if you want to try and dial that down a bit, you just think, right, what would I need to do to get this down to a 9? Is there anything that I can do right now to get it down to a 9? If you're thinking that every time, I don't know, like just say my ex is Johnny, right? So if Johnny calling, the name coming up on the screen, it just hits you, because it does. It hits every single time whilst you're going through these things. Turn his name into a small letter J. Simple little things. Don't refer to him as Johnny. Refer to him as J. And transfer the painful person into something very small that can be dealt with very easily. And also take your own time and make sure that you're being led in your own way. Because when you're going through a divorce, some people can be very pressurizing on the other. Because especially if there's a person that's done something wrong, they will want to be free from the shame, free from the guilt, free from the judgment, and they just want it off and cut it off like a bad leg. But what about the person on the other side that's experiencing what they've done? They're not ready to move on at that stage because they weren't aware that they were at that stage. So they've got to work out what they need to do. So don't feel pressured either. Take control of your own self. Take control of what you can take control of. If someone's saying, oh, I don't want lawyers involved, why? Ask why. Why don't you? Well, maybe I would. Maybe you don't want lawyers involved because there are certain reasons that you might know that I don't, to not get lawyers involved that would benefit you rather than me. And you've got to sort of weigh these things up. You can't be directed by anyone, but it's very, very tough on your own when you've got all of these emotions flying around, to try and take the accountability for yourself, to try and understand how you're going to be that day, and all the rest of it. It's a tough situation, but basically breathing techniques are brilliant. Obviously journaling's fantastic. And try to dial down those negative emotions. What can you do in your day? Is there a park nearby after you've dropped the kids off at school that you can go for a walk around, grab yourself a takeaway coffee, put a podcast on? Don't go home and ruminate on the bad thoughts. Put something else in place, interrupt it, and try and chip it, and then you will get those negative things, and it's quite normal, it's quite natural, but it's being aware of how long you're allowing yourself as well. Another good technique that they taught us was to give yourself emotional time as well. So say, right, okay, my hardest times are waking up and going to sleep, because obviously they always are. You wake up to the same old, and the next, and when you're going to sleep, it's upsetting. Your breakup support team's really key, like I mentioned earlier. The best thing to do is on a morning. Obviously, I was living with my mum, but if you weren't, get your mum involved. And morning, mum, how you doing? A nice positive message. Get your friends to do it, and always have someone on the night time that you can call just for a quick 5-minute chat. Tell them about your day, literally whilst you're in bed before you're switching off. Put the phone down and say night, night, love you, because they're the things that you miss as well. That's the part that's been taken away. You're in the bed on your own. It's cold on the other side. It's not nice. Care for yourself is caring with other people as well. So, say night, night, love you, put the phone down, and then text your 3 friends, night, guys, love you. And then they'll send you one back because they're on your breakup support team. And then when you get them, just switch your light off, or they might send it to you when you're asleep and you wake up to that. And you know that there's other people around you that love you. And that's really important. And whilst your friend's quite right, do things in your own time and don't talk about the scabs, wait until they're scars. But at that point as well, make sure that with your own self, you've got your breakup support team there, and you are talking about it, because a problem shared is a problem halved. Might build up to a problem again. You might have to talk about it again, but you keep talking, and eventually the half becomes a quarter, and then it's less and less as time goes on.
Oh, and I totally believe that. And my friends are feeling and hearing the scabs. It's just, publicly, particularly having a podcast where you're meant to be so personal. You know, I'd feel hypocritical if I wasn't, but, it's all for a later date.
Well, I think as well, it's all in your own time. And there is no timeline, and nothing's right or wrong in these things. You know, you can't be, who's to judge?
Yes.
Who is to judge? No one is. You can't be in that position.
But that's amazing advice, and particularly around the friends, because I've found that friends and family, they want to help. They want to help you through it. And it's very easy, which again, I've been guilty of, to shut yourself down and think, no, I'm doing this on my own. I don't need your help. And also, you don't want to drag people down. You know, sometimes people might be having a great day and you're just like, oh, life's awful.
Yeah, that's true. However, I'd question whether if the shoe was on the other foot, how would you feel if they were shutting themselves off, knowing that they're going through a painful patch in their life and they weren't exploring it with you?
Yeah,
or
hate it.
You wouldn't, wouldn't you? You'd want to be there for them. So you got to remember that, yes, I agree. You know, and like I said, you sell the same story to, 4 or 5 people, because that one person can't have it all and be overwhelmed with it all. So you do need to share it out. But even if you're saying the same thing, it reduces it. And eventually they want to be there anyway. You know, people want to be there for you.
No, it's so true. So final question on this topic. How did you know that you were out of it? You know, how did you know? Was there a defining moment where suddenly you were like, actually, I feel fine. I feel brilliant today?
Out of the pain of the divorce?
Yes.
It was so acrimonious going through the divorce process. And like I said, this person turned into someone that I didn't know, and loads of stuff started coming up that just wasn't true. You know, there was an awful amount of negativity through that divorce process. So I think afterwards I had to heal once the divorce was done. It wasn't like, oh, you've got your, at the time it was decree absolute and, decree nisi and absolute. When I got the decree absolute, that wasn't a joyful day. That wasn't like, oh, great, it's over. I can just carry on with my life now. That was the day that you have to start healing. And I actually really struggled with that because I didn't have any proper support. I felt like my parents had probably expended all of their energy on it. I had to really try and dig deep, and I didn't do very well at the time, to be honest. I kind of, I really struggled mentally. I wasn't well at all. I was on and off medication. I went to therapy to try and help heal with the trauma of stuff, things that I'd seen, things that had happened to me physically. Towards the end, there was some pretty nasty stuff. I ended up in hospital needing a bit of treatment, and it just wasn't something that was easy to deal with. So for me, like I say, the timeline, I wish it could have been on the day that we got the absolute, but it was never going to be. So I think for me personally, it was probably a good couple of years. It was a while, and only really recently, me and my partner have been together for 6 years now. He also went through a difficult breakup and divorce, and I think both of us, when we got together, very defensive, not towards each other, but protective, should I say?
Right.
Very protective. And that is something that I realise is a very tricky situation to be in, because obviously you want to love again and you want to put yourself out there and you want to be in love, because it's a gorgeous thing and love is brilliant and love is kind and love is just the best thing in the world. But you're so scared of being hurt again that that's your next hurdle as well. And all of these things, you have to really give yourself a lot of grace with. You have to be so kind to yourself about it, because it was not your fault. It's not your fault that you feel like that. It wasn't my fault that I felt like that. It's nobody's fault. And I think that's the thing, we're so ingrained in this society today of always looking for whose fault it was, rather than just being like, do you know what?
Do you have an idea for a podcast in your head? If so, we can record, produce, and promote that podcast to bring it to life. Contact us today to find out how.
It's fine. Okay, I'm upset. Of course you're going to be upset. You got completely done in by this person. That's okay. And I think the most important thing to heal afterwards is literally to give yourself a lot of grace and be very, very kind to yourself, and don't expect too much, really. I think we all expect a bit too much sometimes.
Oh, I'm guilty for sure. Yeah, but thank you so much. Amazing advice, even just for me. And I'm sure a lot of listeners. Sorry you had to go through all that though to get to the place you're at.
Makes you the person you are today, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So, totally changing the subject. How were you discovered as a model?
Right. Well, I was at the Clothes Show Live in Birmingham at the NEC with my sister when I was 12, and there was only 4 big agencies in London at the time. There was Storm, Models One, Select, and Elite Premier, because that was before Elite and Premier separated and made the two. So I was 12, so yeah, 90s, we'll say.
Wow, yeah, but 12,
Yeah,
so young.
I was 12, but in fact, yeah, I was 11. I was 11 when they spotted me,
My
and I was 12
goodness.
when I signed up because my mum wouldn't let me sign up when I was 11. Yeah, yeah. But even now, looking back on it, that's so young.
So
It's
young.
And it's fine. They had
Yeah.
the New Faces department, which was for the younger girls. But they did say that when we'd go and stay with them in the half term in the model apartments, there'd be a chaperone, and there certainly wasn't.
Really?
So,
Oh, goodness. That was carnage.
yeah, those model apartments weren't very nice.
And at what age was that? Was that at 12?
I went down when I was 12, but my mum came.
Okay.
I was always like, my dad came a couple of times for a few jobs, which he didn't mind doing because he'd go off to Denmark Street and look at guitars. So he was happy doing that. But the other times, my mum would come with me nearly all the time. I started going to Paris when I was 14. I got my agency there. So she'd come on the Eurostar with me, and it was just so exciting.
Oh, it sounds so glamorous, was it?
But yes and no. I think yes and no. Mostly no, but a couple of bits, a few bits in there. If you said like 85% no, 10% maybe, and then 5% definitely yes.
Oh, I'd have thought it'd be the other way around.
No. Not at all. No.
So what were some of the challenges of being a model?
Living in model apartments is 100% number one. Being landed in another country, in a place I don't speak other languages, obviously like a very ignorant English person.
Oh, me too.
It's terrible, really. I did try in Paris to speak French because I do know un peu. That's it.
Very good.
That's
Très bien.
Merci beaucoup. I think that's how it is. Yeah, but working out I quite found it exciting, to be honest. You get to a new city, there'd be a whole new way of going on, because nothing's like London with the underground. Yes, it's a metro, but the first thing I thought when I landed in Paris and we had to get on castings and go on the metros, it's like, what do you mean they don't have a name? There's no Circle, Bakerloo, Hammersmith and City, District, Piccadilly line. They don't have names, they've got numbers. So you'd get on like the number 4 to wherever, or the 13, and then you have to think of what the ends are. So that it goes to, it's like, you go to Cockfosters or to Eden Broadway or something. But we didn't know. So we ended up just getting completely lost in Paris. Like me and my mum, where are we? I think I started crying at one point. It was just a big mess, but it was a funny old mess, It was good. But I was very lucky because I got my agency in Paris before we went there, there was a group of us that went from Storm, and my mum obviously came, and the other girls didn't have an agency at the time. So when I got there, we just did castings and I just got jobs. So it was always between London and Paris that I worked, and then I was more based in Paris because the look that was around in London at the time was quite androgynous, and I wasn't getting any work.
Okay.
So I went over to Paris and worked over there instead.
It sounds so cool, especially as a young girl, to be experiencing that.
It was so exciting. It was. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't necessarily glamorous with the places that you lived, but I felt so lucky at the time, even when I was 16 and, I'd go over and stay for the 2 weeks of the Easter holidays. And I just think, because I used to love, there was a Marks and Spencer's basically on, I think, Rue de Rivoli somewhere, and they did the tuna pasta bake that I loved.
Perfect. Home from home.
It was amazing. But the other models that were in the apartment were like, oh my gosh, are you eating that? Oh my gosh, it's full of carbs. Like, the fat content is so high. And I was like, oh, shut up.
Was it really like that? Was it really pressurised?
Oh, well, no, I didn't. I never pressurised myself. I'm quite fortunate that I've got high metabolism, and because I was walking around a lot, we'd be pounding the pavements. People think that you want 10,000 steps an hour. We probably did 50 because we were always on castings and we were always moving. So you kind of lost weight naturally anyway.
Right.
For me, I know some girls didn't, but I did, and it was fine, And I used to be sat there eating Swiss roll and crisps. And I wasn't really that bothered, to be honest.
I guess you're so young as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of girls that were terrible. I mean, when Fashion Week would come round, there's like a troupe of showgirls that go from each place to place. And if I was more of an editorial model, I did do the Fashion Weeks in London and Paris, but I wasn't one of the troupe girls that would go, that just basically land and go to all the castings, do all the shows, and then they go to the next place.
Okay.
You know, I was one that was sort of based in London or Paris that would partake in some shows, but I wouldn't get a lot because I wasn't a showgirl, because they were waif, like really waif then.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that they managed to do that is because, and this is where the fashion industry was shocking, because they would literally eat tea-soaked kitchen roll for lunch.
What?
Just to get their tummies filled up, and they'd eat cotton wool and things like that.
Oh, that's so dangerous.
Yeah, but that was just how they were.
Oh my goodness.
You know? And that's because they used to be so thin. They'd get baby hair on their arm, you know, because they had no fat content. So the body naturally grows hair, like if people have got anorexia and things.
Oh, I didn't know that.
To try and keep the body heat in. So some girls were very, very, very thin. It was uncomfortable to watch that. One girl, I remember Helen from Denmark. You always remember where they're from, don't you? It's like second names with people from school.
Yeah,
you always remember the surnames.
Yeah.
Yeah, Helen from Denmark, she came and she used to travel with a blender, and she would juice everything. So say you were going to have a normal meal, she'd put it in a blender and then get a cheesecloth and strain it and only drink that. She'd just throw away everything else. So they'd get nutrients from places that you wouldn't even imagine that you could eat, stuff like that. And
oh my goodness, my tummy's rumbling now. I'm feeling hungry talking about.
Do you want a juiced up chicken dinner?
Well, not for that, but just like proper food.
Yeah, exactly.
But just feeling bad for them, because obviously I guess they didn't want to be doing that. That was the career they had, and they felt that pressure.
Yeah. That's it. And the fashion industry is a very double-edged sword, because if you can make it work, it can be absolutely spectacular for yourself. You know, I mean, campaigns, you'd get £30,000 for a campaign doing the Pantene adverts. You know, if you'd be on the side of buses, it'd be amazing, all that type of stuff. But there'd also be a hell of a lot of castings that you go to that you didn't get. And a lot of people didn't understand that, so it affected the mental health quite a lot.
I was going to ask that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that you had to deal with rejection. It didn't really bother me for some reason. I just coasted on through it at the time. It was afterwards that it sort of, I realised, oh, hang on a minute, that wasn't a tasty situation to be in. That was a bit like fruity. I didn't feel comfortable with that, you know.
Yeah.
But having said that, I was also never pressured to do anything. For me personally, I was never pressured to do anything that I didn't want to do, or I didn't sort of do comfortably, if you know what I mean. So when I was younger, there might be like a sheer top that you had on, and obviously you'd wear your underwear on it, and the photographer just said, would you mind taking that off, because it just looks better on the shot. And at the time it might have made you feel a bit uncomfortable, but then again, you have to just kind of get on with things like that, because it's the artwork of it. They're not looking at you with the top off, they're looking at the overall picture, you know. So there was that sort of balance that you had to work out as well. There was a couple of photographers that would try and push it, that were notorious for it.
Okay.
And we all knew if you got a casting at so-and-so's house, you would miss it, because it was potentially an uncomfortable situation. And I've spoken to a journalist about this as well. She's called Lisa Brinkworth. She did a very high-profile undercover for the BBC when that was when it was Elite premiere, and this was in Milan. I think I was about 15 at the time, 14 or 15. And there was this big expose on how they were treating the models over there, and it was all very uncomfortable. Lots of people touching them where in places in ways that they shouldn't have been.
Yes.
The girls were very uncomfortable, and Lisa did a big expose on this, and she's also a journalist writer for the Times. And I got in touch with her and I said, I love the work that you're doing, I think it's brilliant, you know, well done. And we've had a lot of conversations about the industry and what it's like, and how people are now as well, as an older woman, you know, being in your 40s and thinking back, you know, I've got a son now who's 11. I got spotted when I was 12.
Yeah.
You know, I got taken on when George was like next year, and it's crazy to think. But, you know, I think there's a lot of it, really. There was something I saw yesterday on the TV. Jodie Kidd was on. You know,
caught a little bit of that.
Did you see it?
Would that be Clancy?
On the ITV.
Yeah, I only caught the end of it.
Brilliant, wasn't it? So But on it, did you see the bit where Abby Clancy asked, there's no pictures of you, like on the covers of
Didn't
Vogue?
see that bit. No.
Yeah, and Georgie Kidd just sort of went, yeah, there'll be a psychiatrist who'll have a good reason for that, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't want my pictures around because there's so much that was just wrong in the industry that it's hard to sort of explain without.
I think I can understand, and as well as that fine line between empowerment, if a woman wants to be like that and wants to be photographed and and do whatever she wants to do, but then also it's that if she's doing things and she doesn't want to do it, but yeah,
or feeling like you'll lose the option on your casting sheet.
Yes,
if you don't do that.
It must make you resilient, though, all those, because I'm guessing you got a lot more knockbacks than you got jobs.
Absolutely. I think probably 99% to 1, even that high. But you just have to keep going. You just go, that's your job. Your job as a model is to go on your castings, do the best you can and get the work. And if you don't get the work, so what?
Yeah.
I always used to put it down to the casting director has the image of what they want in their head already. And you might just not fit that image.
Yes.
It's nothing to do with you personally. It's probably your hair's not the right shade or your eyes are not the right shape. In their mind's eye, they know what they want. So you couldn't really take anything too personally.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
But then you were also in TV and a film as well.
Yes, yeah. Gox Fashion Fix on Channel 4 was on that one. And The Boat That Rocked, which was a Richard Curtis film. So I used to work quite a lot, quite closely with Rankin, the photographer, not with him taking photos of me, but because I was very good friends with his wife, Thule.
Oh, brilliant. Mm-hmm.
So I went to their wedding and, all that type of thing. And we used to do a lot of work with Agent Provocateur as well. So it was through that sort of angle that we got into the film, because Rankin was in the film and it was in a shoot. So the situation was about, Rankin's models basically. So there was myself, Thule, Poppy Delevingne, and then another girl, I can't remember her name, but something Moon. I remember her name was Moon. And there was the 4 of us. So we were Rankin's models in The Boat That Rocked.
Oh, amazing. How was that experience?
Fantastic. But this is the thing, that's what I mean. So many things about the modelling industry were terrible and crap, but then you'd get, a gold ticket like that you'd be like, amazing, ding, ding, this is fantastic. I can't remember which studios we were at. I think it was Pinewood, but anyway, it was a big, big one like that. Huge aircraft hangars everywhere, the proper dressing up, outdoor cabins or whatever there were, and all of the, but it was so much that went into it, because all of the costumes needed to be fitted, so you had to go for about 4 weeks before film days, doing all of your fittings and getting all of your costumes done. So there was a lot of excitement that was on that one.
It sounds amazing. And did that make it all worthwhile?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So for all of that sort of, regurgitation of casting, then you'd get a good thing like that. And it's like, oh, yeah, great, lovely.
I guess it's just life, isn't it? You don't get anywhere for nothing. And you've got to put in hard work, and people just don't see the hard work behind the scenes.
They don't see the hard work behind the scenes. I always liken it to a swan, when they're just going along, gliding along, look so beautiful and so lovely, but underneath, blah, 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 blah. Everyone's going so hard, 10 to the dozen.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I know. Yeah. And again, that's why I think it's important to talk about these things so people realise, because if things don't come easy, or it certainly seems like that these days, if things don't come easy, they give up because they think it should be easy because they make it look easy.
Yeah, I think it's all to do with your mindset, isn't it? I've got a separate company that I set up with a couple of people that we called reverse engineering.
Okay.
And different projects will come out of it based on, completely different to what I do at the moment. And the reason that we called it reverse engineering is basically because that's how I've just done my whole life. If I've wanted to do something, I know I can't do it, but how do I get to do it? Right, so you need to do that to get that right. I can't do that yet. All right, I need to do that to get. I can't do that yet either. So what do I need to do that? Oh, well, I can do that. All right, I'll sign up to a thing and I'll do that, and then I'll do that. But so many people can't be bothered anymore. No. It's this instant gratification where they want it straight away, and life's not like that.
No.
If you really want to make something work, you've got to put the hours in and you've got to make it work properly.
Absolutely. And break it into those small manageable steps, because that massive dream, it just seems untouchable at the time.
It does. But, even things like when I was on tour with one of the bands in America, we were at this big festival place and there was this little biplane flying around in the air. And I was like, oh my God, that looks amazing. And someone said, oh, I know the guy that owns the plane. I was like, no way. So we ended up going to this farm, going up in a biplane, doing a load of aerobatics,
Yeah.
and flying around. It was so much fun. I came back, I was like, I need to learn how to do that. I just need to learn how to do it. So come back, just get flying lessons, and then just learn how to fly a plane. I can't do aerobatics, and I'm back at 0 hours because my hours expired, but I've got my new hours again to start doing it again. If you want to do something, just give it a go. That's the thing. I think that's the thing that's the difference between people who are entrepreneurial and people who just can't be bothered and they're all right just doing a job.
And there's nothing wrong with that either. But you can't expect the other if you're not willing to put in the work and take some risks.
You've got to take the risks. You've got to take the risk. But that's who you are, isn't it? You either can or you can't. You will or you won't. You know, that I wouldn't be able to sit with myself if I wasn't giving myself challenges and let's do this. Why not? Let's do it. Yeah. If someone tells me no, I'll show you that you can.
Do you think that's something that you've always been, or it's shaped you from what you've been through, the challenges you faced in life?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I just you can't put me down. You know, you just have to keep going. And I don't really. There's a lot of times that you do feel like you can't do things. You know, I've been, like I say, I've been in therapy. I've had medication. You know, I've had a terrible time of it at sometimes. You wouldn't recognise me now compared to that. But eventually, you've just got to get up and on with it, don't you? You've got to just start doing stuff and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. If you're comfortable, you're not where you should be, I always think. You should always be just a little bit further out of your comfort zone. If it frightens you, then good.
Yeah, no growth happens in the comfort zone.
Exactly.
And there's no comfort in the growth zone, apparently.
Yeah,
So
I like that.
Well, it's true.
Yeah, it is. It's so true.
Yeah. And again, so you've got so many different talents, but you're also a classic pianist. Is that right?
I am, yes. Yeah. So I started playing when I was about 7. I had a couple of breaks here and there, but I actually tied it in with my modelling at one point. So I used to do a lot of work for Agent Provocateur, and with them, you know, it would just be events or whatever, you know, walking around in their things. And then once they found out I could play piano, they said, right, well, can we use you as like a character almost that will come and play the piano in their outfits?
Oh, it's so cool. I love it.
For a big event or something. So we did one at an art gallery in Notting Hill for a new launch of the new campaign and stuff. So you'd just be sat there playing some nice music in your smalls but a nicer outfit.
As you do.
As you do, you know, just sat in my pants, playing my piano.
But I love that. And it's wrong, but so many people stereotypically think, oh, a model prancing about in their underwear, they're clearly stupid. And it's wrong. You should never judge people, whatever they're doing like that. But then I love the fact that you're playing like classical piano and proving that wrong.
It was really good. I mean, to be honest, a lot of models are very well read. There's a lot of time on aeroplanes. There's a lot of time travelling. There's a lot of time waiting at shoots. One of my very good friends, Jennifer, she's one of the most well-read people I know. She's honestly like the fountain of knowledge, and not just because she thinks she knows it, she genuinely knows it. And a lot of models are like that because they've got so much time on their hands. And back in the day, before iPhones, when I was doing it, everyone had a book. And you wouldn't be reading stories. You know, some people would be reading Plato's Republic or, you know, Homer, the Odyssey. And there'd be lots of old classics that people would sit and talk about. Very intelligent women.
I love that. I think it's jealousy, a lot of it, where people just decide, oh, they're clearly stupid then because they look so amazing. You know?
It is, yeah. How can you be looking nice and also be clever? You know?
Yeah.
Like you've only allowed one. But no, the Agent Provocateur took me to Vienna, which was amazing. So, you know, played in front of 45,000 people there in my pants.
That's amazing.
At the big palace. So that was fantastic, you know.
I love it.
Experiences like that just don't come along.
No. No, that's just wonderful. But we're going to go back to a more darker time. You alluded to a more darker time where your life wasn't perhaps as amazing as it is today. So you attempted to end your life. What were your reasons for that?
I think it was a massive mixture of things, to be honest. I used to drink a hell of a lot when I was younger. And this is going back into my 20s, you know, probably I think I was 24 or something, 23, 24, around then. And also it was in the middle of, it was actually at the height of my modelling career when everything was brilliant. Everything had been going really well. I think at that point I did put pressure on myself, and I was starting to engage with the upper tiers of people that were about to basically like springboard me into mixing with the likes of Kate Moss and Sadie Frost and all of that type of stuff. And I don't think I wanted it in my mind. I think that I was a bit like, no, it's too much.
Did it frighten you?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think it did, probably. Now I'm thinking about it now. At the time, I wouldn't have known that. But looking at it, like, say, hindsight's a wonderful thing. That will have had a lot to do with it as well. At the time, my boyfriend was a famous rock star. You know, we were on tour with, like, Linkin Park and all these big people.
It sounds amazing. Again, sorry to say amazing there, but you just assume that it is, but clearly it wasn't.
It wasn't, no, it wasn't, because a lot of pressures came with that as well, you know. And you always look at these people in celebrity land where you think, oh, like, why did it break up so easy? You know, why do they like flap around so much? But it's because nothing is linear. Nothing is known. You're living in the unknown all the time. You know, everything is unstable. And I think at the time, with everything the way that it was, everything was going so well. But on the inside, I was so empty and I was just so down about things. And then at the time, my boyfriend at the time told me that he was going to split up with me whilst I was in the process of moving to New York to live with him. And then he just like threw this thing in. And I just imploded on myself completely. And it wasn't because of him and it wasn't because of work. It was just my own mind was just not in a very good place at all. So I lived in New York at the time and I kept thinking to myself, if I feel like this again tomorrow, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then the next day would come and then it'd just be the same. And I'd be like, if I still feel like this, what the hell am I going to do? I can't live like this. And I was so young, you know, and I was in New York. My family weren't there. I didn't have my breakup support team type thing. You know, I'd completely isolated myself and I just went in on myself and I was like, right, fuck it. That's it. I'm doing it. And I was walking home from, I can't remember where, I've just been to like the grocery store, I think. And I was just so matter of fact. And it was terrible, really. Now I think about it. If I could go back and give that girl a hug and say, come on, you don't need to do that, you know.
Yeah, bless you. And so did you actually go through with it?
Oh, yeah. I took 120 paracetamols and 96 sleeping tablets.
So you're pretty serious.
Yeah, I don't do things by halves.
I mean, I'm not entirely sure how many would have done the job, but I'm guessing that was well over the amount.
I have no idea. I wouldn't know. I didn't research it.
How did you manage to access 120 paracetamol?
I went to different pharmacies.
Okay, so it was clearly really calculated.
Unfortunately, yeah, it was. And then I went to my favourite little deli and got my favourite pastrami wrap, which was just gorgeous. And all the while knew that this is what I was going to do. And at no point did I actually think that I shouldn't, because I was just thinking, well, I still feel that empty. I still feel that hollow. I still feel that dead inside. I just don't want to be here anymore. I can't do this. This is nothing's good enough for me anymore. And I'm not good enough for this world. I genuinely thought this is, what did I used to say? This world isn't right for me. That used to be my sentence at that time. It'd be
your mantra.
It'd be my belief.
Yeah.
My belief. This world isn't for me. I'm not meant for this world. That's what I used to say to myself. And really, God, couldn't be more wrong. You know, that happened. Some weird reason, my ex-boyfriend then turned up at my apartment without us even phoning each other or anything. He just turned up. He said, I knew something had happened. I knew something had gone wrong. And it did go wrong, you know. And unfortunately, that's just the way that it panned out. And then I came home. I obviously went to hospital and wasn't well.
Were you unconscious at the time you got to the
No, they've got me really quick. He turned up.
You just had this feeling?
Yeah, he turned up and luckily, you know, I'd phoned the police and the ambulance and was taken off to hospital and obviously kept in a certain place for, you know, just security reasons, really, until my mum came because she flew over from Mozambique. And it was a terrible time, really, because when you do it, you don't think that you're going to have any, what's the word? Like any follow-up. You don't think that there's going to be...
You're not going to be accountable.
That's it.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden it's like, fuck, didn't work. Sorry, I swore.
No, it's fine. It's totally acceptable.
Oh, good, thank you. But you're just like, oh, shit, you know, God, it didn't work. But at the same time, it's like, oh, thank God my mum's here. It's, oh, God, and then all of a sudden you realise, oh my God, this was not meant to work. But then there's all the guilt and all the shame and all the feelings, and then, family are annoyed, but they're not annoyed, and so confusing. So there's another whole healing journey that I've had to go on as well, But that was a very sad time, really. If I look at it now, it's a very sad time, and I'm really, really happy that it didn't work.
Yes.
And I genuinely, I do this all the time. Even just 2 nights ago, I did it when I was going to sleep. I genuinely thank the universe for it not working and being where I am now. And even with everything I've had to go through with my ex-husband, because the person that I'm with now is so lovely and so kind, and I feel so safe with, and none of that was ever there before him, ever. Even with my ex-husband, obviously it wasn't a safe place, was it? And before him, there was my ex-boyfriend in New York and the suicide attempt and all the rest of it. It's been really hardcore. And then all of a sudden now, if I had succeeded, I wouldn't have what I have now.
I know I love hearing that. I love it that you're happy. You've got your happy ending. It's just sometimes I just wonder, some people get that happy ending without going through all that trauma.
Yeah, they do.
But then do they fully appreciate it? And I'm sure they do. But it's just like, why do some people have to go through so much trauma?
I don't know. I think it's life lessons. It's just, why not? Some people. But my first coach, Tracy Litt, she's amazing, American. She used to say that, if people are going through really difficult times, or they get a bad health scare, or they do get bad health, happening with them, and some people say, oh, why me? First thing she says, why not you? Why not? What makes you so special that you shouldn't have to go through these things? And that's where you've got to just come to accept your lot. If you sit there and think, why me, why me, why me, over and over and over again, you're going down, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you're going to sit there and be like, oh, for fuck's sake,
not again.
Oh God, another. Right, okay, well, I know how to get through this. Okay, I've got something in my filing cabinet here that I can pull out and use because this feels similar to that, so I can go forwards with the tools. And it just makes you a more resilient person. I think my life wasn't strategically placed, was it? I didn't go to school. I went to school, but I didn't go to college. I didn't go to uni. I didn't get a job, which is the usual direction that generally people go.
Yes.
I was thrown into a very adult world at the age of 12 and 13. So I was never going to be going to college. The first fashion party I went to, I was stood chatting with Chris Evans and Charlene Spiteri at the age of 13. So that was my map of the world.
Yeah.
That was where I wanted to be. And obviously you're going to hit a lot of roadblocks there, and you're going to hit a lot of stuff that comes up. So for me personally, my life has been tricky because I've been in different types of situations. If I hadn't have left home and I went to uni round here and I got a job round here, you've got less risk factors, don't you? You do have a lot less.
Yeah.
So it's all sorts of different factors, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing, and you are incredible to be, here, so inspiring, helping other people based on the experiences that you've been through. So thank you for sharing your story. But it's not quite over yet. We've got the regular questions feature.
Oh, gosh.
So this is where on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, you rate yourself at 10 things. So this first one has to be high based on the job you've done. How good looking are you?
7.
Oh, no, don't be silly. You don't get a modelling contract
I can't
on a
go
7.
for a 10. I'm not that. I'm not that type of person.
How funny are you?
I think I'm pretty funny. I'll go for a 9.
Brilliant.
Like a fool.
Are you good at cooking?
I'm good at one pan things.
All right.
I'm not technical, but I'm definitely a 10 on my one pans.
Like what? What's one pan thing?
Like a big massive pan of like chicken with peppers and tomato sauce and just everything all in one.
Okay, like a stew sort of
thing.
thing.
Or like a fish one. I do like a good monkfish one with king prawns and scallops and really nice chorizo, like quite Spanishy, and paprika, but it all goes in one pan. I can't do anything where you have to serve it up. It's not.
That sounds good.
Not that finesse.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Are you good at singing?
1.
No, really? Because it would have been amazing if you were also singing while playing the piano in your underwear.
No. Only 2 things. So unfortunately, we don't get 3.
It was a lot to ask for 3 anyway. You mentioned alcohol and how you drank a lot in your 20s, and I think that was the culture. You know, I was the same. It was almost expected of you. It was always, even in the workplace when I first entered it, it was seen as you got kudos for how much you could drink at networking events and things like that.
It was good fun though.
It was good fun. It was good fun. But yeah, not so good for your liver or your health or your mental health.
I don't know, you know, I had a medical test the other week, and literally last week I got the results. My liver and kidney function are exactly where they need to be. So I wasn't expecting that.
It can heal itself. That's the benefit. I guess it's like
Amazing.
the heart. So do you drink much these days? Now you're good at it?
I am really, really good at it, yeah, but I don't drink much these days.
Okay.
No.
What score would you give yourself?
I'll give myself an even 5 because
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
balanced with that now.
You've got the
There's no
potential there,
extremes.
but yeah.
11, potentially. Sitting happy 5.
Brilliant. What are your parenting skills like?
Oh, I think they're a good 9. I'd like to think so.
Oh.
I love my little George.
Oh,
Yeah,
lovely.
he's a good boy.
Oh. How good a friend are you?
I'd like to think a good 9 or 10. Yeah, I like to be there for my friends. And yeah, I'm always on the phone and checking in on them, making sure everyone's okay.
Oh, lovely. Intelligence levels?
I think it's quite high, but my partner would probably say I'm not.
How rude.
I forget everything, and I just really do have brain blanks all the time. But then again, I can have a really good conversation about particle physics. So 8.
Yeah, it's similar to me. I do the dumbest things, but I'm quite intelligent deep down. You know, you just have to dig a little bit sometimes.
Exactly, yeah. Just say, oh, right, okay, take that lid off. And, oh, it is in there.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
How kind are you?
Oh, I think I'm quite kind. Yeah, I'll go for a 9 on kind.
Oh, brilliant. And the question everyone loves to tell me about, how good at sex are you?
Well, this one's something that we're not going to talk
Okay,
about.
that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for being an amazing guest.
No problem, thank you.